Hey, we're live. This is my non-objective opinion, and today we're here with Sam Slovick. He's a journalist and a photographer. Um, does really awesome work. So, how are you today, Sam?
Thanks. Good morning. Thanks. I'm great. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I'm still drinking coffee and smoking weed, trying to wake up. So, yeah. Well,
God bless you.
why don't you tell the people listening a little bit about who you are and what you do, and maybe how you got started briefly, briefly how you got started in journalism, so they know who's talking.
Right. So in 2005, I moved to Skid Row in Los Angeles, which is 50 square blocks of human rights violations, second to seventh, central to Broadway, no, Main. And I moved to Skid Row, where there's like thousands of people and squalor living in the street. And I spent most of my life in New York, so I didn't really understand where I was moving. And as soon as I got there, I was just kind of stunned and shocked at the suffering, just the pain. This guy used to call it the human zoo, this real estate developer, and it is a human zoo. So I pitched a story to the LA Weekly, and for some reason they said yes. And I wrote a story on Skid Row, and it was very much initially kind of, prototypical white savior stepping into some very serious poverty. The demographic is like 95% black to my eye, and then some other people on Skid Row, but everybody's pretty much black. So that's where I started, but I spent a lot of time in the street. I immediately dovetailed into police violence and systemic institutionalized racism, because these things are all the same: poverty and homelessness. You can't look at it without looking at transgenerational systemic institutionalized racism. And so that
Yeah,
dovetailed to migration. Yeah,
I was just agreeing
that
with you.
dovetailed in, oh, exactly. That dovetailed to migration, because it's also, downtown Los Angeles historically is like very much very charged political environment. And so if you spend time there, you'll know what's going on in the macro, because people will be protesting and organizing in that space. And so migration, before we started talking, before we started the show, we were talking about migration and the story I did for Los Angeles Magazine called The Last Caravan, which is what I was doing just before this new BLM revolution, this global Black Lives Matter revolution. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about that. And,
Please do. I really
you
I read some of those caravan articles, and they were like amazing. So yeah, I mean that was, yeah. Please talk about that for a minute if you can.
Okay, thanks. I went to live stream the caravan, and I met up with this caravan in just a little bit north of Mexico City, and got on the bus for 3 or 4 days, and kind of met a bunch of people, and everybody had the same story, one way or another. They're fleeing whatever, or moving towards something, because they couldn't sustain themselves, take care of themselves, or live. And everybody was pretty much from predominantly Honduras, but also El Salvador and Guatemala. So I live streamed for a site called Haps TV, haps.tv, and I just live streamed the caravan. I had live streamed a little bit at Occupy LA in 2011 or 12, and but I hadn't. It was just kind of experimental, and this is what I wanted to do. So I left my camera at home, took my phone, and live streamed, and ended up for 4.5 months, almost 5 months, in Tijuana. Most of it in, I think, almost 3 months of it in that refugee camp at the border. 2018, 7,000 people, and that was hideous. And in the story, I get into how it was fueled by mainstream media. An example of that would be reporting that 300 people from the caravan were criminals. That number came out of a DHS report. Nobody read the report, even though it was there was highlights and bullet points in the Washington Post and everywhere else. You didn't have to actually. It was a short report, but you didn't actually have to read it. Nobody read it, so they started kicking this out all over the place. Everybody, LA Times, New York Times, and the DHS report didn't say that. It said that there were less than 1%, I believe, people who had any kind of paper on them in the caravan, because everybody who had warrants was processed out over all these series of checkpoints along the way from, all the way through Mexico. So that resulted in a very bad situation. There was already a lot of, the mayor of Tijuana was wearing a Make America Great Again hat and fueling the flames. And so the people rolled into TJ into like a field of hate. And then mainstream media was fueling it to the point that people were getting abused. Actually, it made a bad situation much worse, dangerous, and more hostile to people who were, I'm talking about the most vulnerable people, LGBTQ migrants. And so that was the situation there. And ultimately, what happened was horrifying to the point where people just started, people were getting killed, people were getting trafficked. People were getting trafficked on my live stream. And I didn't really understand even that was what was happening until I went back and looked at it. So that's what happened. The stories about these two kids that got murdered in the most grisly, hideous kind of TJ fashion. And that's really what inspired me to read this story, or to write this story, because it was just like too much. So 5 months in TJ, and these two kids died. They were just murdered. It was grisly. You can read it in the story, Last Caravan in Los Angeles Magazine. I wouldn't read it, quite frankly, because I don't want to think about the horror of it again. And there were two kids from Honduras. One of them's name was Alex. They called him Sarko. The other kid's name was Jason. And they left the youth shelter and got slaughtered by some kind of low-level cartel drug-dealing people.
Yeah, I read that a couple of days ago. It was a really amazing article. And it is. It's devastating. Yeah. It's fucking devastating. And all the detail you put into it, just following their lives for a little while, the happiness and the joys, and then the tragedy. What is it, samslovick.com? Like, you can find a lot of your articles there, and they're really good.
Yeah, samslovick.com.
Yeah, that's SLOVICK, and Sam is a first name. But yeah, I encourage everyone to go read those. They're amazing. They really are. And with all the detail, it just I don't even know the words to describe it. Yeah, it's like, it's heart-wrenching, some of these stories these people had to go through.
Right, so the reason to write it is that I wrote it so people will start to maybe have a look and understand what's still going on in all these camps, and what's still going on with all of these children who are never going to be reconnected to their families, because they're too small and they didn't keep records. So there's also another part of this, and that is that a lot of people did get in, despite what was, coming through the news feed and coming out of the Trump administration from Stephen Miller. A lot of people did get in, and a lot of people are here. And it's not just from, Central America. It's also from Africa. There's people coming in all the time, every day, from all over. And a lot of them are traumatized because they're spending months and months in these ICE camps and then dumped on the street. There's actually a nonprofit called Minority Humanitarian Foundation, run by a guy named Mark Lane. They pick people up every night right there on the U.S. side of the border at San Ysidro, and they dump people on the streets. They actually take them out of a van from ICE, detention centers, load them out of a van with ankle and wrist shackles, and then take those off in the street. And these people have committed no crime. All they've done is applied for asylum, which is legal. And so it's a hideous, horrible, ongoing situation. And I see it coming back into the news feed as Black Lives Matter, continues to dominate. It's such a beautiful thing from my perspective, what's going on there. And, Black-Brown unity. I think you remember in 2013, Black Lives Matter LA did a camp in an encampment at City Hall for, I believe it was 54 days after the LA Police Commission voted that the police killing of Riddell Jones was in policy, and that's what instigated that action. And so there was a day there called Black Brown Shut It Down. In my perspective, also, in my experience, BLMLA is radically inclusive, and that's, I believe, why one of the reasons I think they're so enormously successful in organizing here. And by that I mean the police chief stepping down early, Charlie Beck, after pressure from BLMLA, and also clearly in the near future, Jackie Lacey is going to be gone. Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah. And just for anybody listening, Jackie Lacey is the district attorney of LA, who historically has refused to prosecute police who murder people. So,
today is the anniversary of the murder of Ezell Ford by these pigs.
I'm aware of that. Ezell Ford and his, it's like, well, I just want to jump back a second. What we were talking about a second ago was that, these families, these victims, families that have been killed by the police, victims and families have been murdered by the LAPD and other police departments. That's one of the, when I think of Ezell Ford, I just think of his mother. And she was there during the 2013 action to decolonize LA City Hall, the 4-day. That was actually in 2016, not 2013. 2013 was the birth of BLMLA, which was the Trayvon Martin verdict uprising. I'm sure
there was a lot of protest over Ezell Ford. I just don't know who was doing them. I kind of just show up. I'm like, people are doing them. I know the groups are important, but it's just like, I'm just like, the people are doing a protest. Let's go.
It's so hard to tell until you get there sometimes, because people are a little tricky about organizing and who's actually initiating it and whose action it is. I think I saw you at City Hall a couple weeks ago when there was the Justice for Veronica March, the Black Lives Matter ongoing action at City Hall, and Justice for Vanessa, not Veronica, Justice for Vanessa, and a third march, which was Solidarity with Portland.
Yeah.
And that's the one that had an outside organizer, and they took the freeway, and that's where everybody broke that's where there was like a group of like 6 or 7 black bloc, and small little black bloc that broke the windows at the federal building and then at the court building. I
wasn't there that day.
Good, because that's the one where I got shot in the ankle with a projectile and quit. And I got to tell you, at my age, it still hurts.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. I've had my ribs broken. I've been shot up by their bullshit. Fuck them pigs. Like, really?
Fuck them, but like, the older I get, the longer it takes to heal. It makes me think if I should be only showing up with a very long lens these days, so I don't like die at a protest in Los Angeles, become disabled.
Yeah, I have a backpack with a gas mask in it all the time, just in case, because... And oddly enough, the one day I had a drone and too much heavy stuff, I left the gas mask. That's when they gassed us. So it really...
The question is, why are the police shooting tear gas at people? The question is, why are the police out in these other... I don't even know who they are half the time. Why are these people out in the streets in camouflage with guns? And as everybody knows, the violence starts when the police show up. And before that, there may be some isolated incident. But like, there's, all these years later, it's like, I don't think I've ever seen violence erupt when the police aren't at a protest. I haven't. It's never happened.
It's not even protest. It's just anytime a lot of people the wrong people are doing something they don't like. Like, I remember years ago, there was at Leimert Park, they used to have these Project Blow, I don't know if they're festivals or whatever, and it was like every neighborhood getting along. There was black cats from different neighborhoods that don't get along getting along. There was Latino cats from different neighborhoods that don't get along getting along. There was Asian cats, white cats, fucking every kind of person you can believe over there getting along. There'd be a little fight here or there, but it wasn't crazy. You put all them gangs in one place, it wasn't crazy. Everyone was there for the music and chilling out, having a good time. And then the police came and raided. They surrounded the park. People started throwing bottles and then it turned violent. After months and months and months of peace, the police, I believe, were like, we don't want these gangsters getting along. That's going to take our business away. Let's fuck some shit up. It was right, tragic. I was there that night, but it was long before live streams and shit. It was years and years ago. This is nothing new.
Right. And today, same tactic, right?
Yeah, it's nothing new. I mean, I was just looking at, I heard they were doing a movie about Fred Hampton, who's a hero of mine, And I was like, I really hope they don't make people, you know how Hollywood is, embellishing things and putting bullshit stories where they don't belong. But I was just reading some of his quotes and stuff, and it's like, this stuff's been going on forever in this country. It's nothing changed since the 60s when the only difference now is people have cameras everywhere, so we see it all day, every day. Back then, black cats would be like, oh, the police beat me up. Where's the evidence? We don't know. The police get off. You know what I mean? They get off with cameras. Imagine without cameras how bad it was back then. It's insane to me.
Well, it is insane. And, and it's interesting because you say the police, right? And so if we think about law enforcement, especially in Los Angeles, because there's law enforcement that's more violent than LA, as we both know. But LA, I mean, just as a daily course, I'm not talking about police-involved shootings or police murder, but, Chicago is just like the Wild West in some ways. LA, from my perspective, is much slicker, even though the Los Angeles Police Department historically kills more people than any other law enforcement agency in the country. They have different moves, and what's so shocking to me about the LAPD is every time there's a new, well, it's not shocking. I take that back. It's not shocking about it. Every time there's a new police chief, they do the perfunctory, like, they admit everything speech when they first get in, because LAPD is like, it's more gangster than anything, 2 consent decrees that went for 10 years from the DOJ, the last one for Rampart. All the corruption, all the racist violence, everything that they are responsible for, that's their legacy, that's their history. Nobody denies it. The new police chief always just says, okay, we have a history of corruption, violence, racist, murder, all this shit. And they just that's where they start. That's their throat clearing for their tenure as police chief in LA. And
I was going to say, I'm just waiting for another black police chief, because that's the next move they do. They throw a black police chief, like, this is going to make it all better. Like Willie or whatever, like Willie Williams. They've done it in different cities as well, but they've done it here before. Yeah. Bernard Parks was put there for that same reason back in the day. Willie Williams was put there for that same reason.
Right. And so exactly in Seattle and Portland and Chicago, there's black women heading the police department. But of course, that's, very much superficial and all that. I mean, I believe. But in LA, it's like, this is the place. These people invented SWAT. You know the history of it. These people, LA invented SWAT. Remember Black Panther, right? Remember when they shot everybody? And but beyond that, they've also, what's that program? The 1022 program, the giveaway where the Pentagon gives away all of it. Is it 1022 or 1023?
For the military gear?
Yeah, they give away all the surplus military gear.
I don't know the number, but yeah.
It's a 1033. There's actually a website where they go, all the different law enforcement agencies go bid on it. And so they actually requested a submarine. The LAPD requested a submarine, which shows you the nature of the LAPD. Yeah, the nature of the organism is just to expand. And so that's what it does. It
can you imagine a police force without a submarine? That would be odd.
Man, their perspective is so skewed. But what I wanted to mention about the LAPD and the consent decrees is that the issue, of course, there's lots of big issues, but the issue is that it's a closed system. And even though at the end of One of the, the LA Police Commission was one of the things that they had to achieve to get off the consent decree. There's like a list, and one of them was like, you have to form a police commission. And of course, it's a closed system. The people don't have any kind of real power there. It's just like a great place for people to grieve, really. That's what I think. They can go and grieve and share their anger and their frustration and sadness and all that there, but I don't think it's going to have any impact on policing. So
real quick, Sam,
yeah.
we have a question in the chat from somebody who's from the UK, and I responded to him already, but I want he said, that's crazy. What are they going to do with all that equipment? ? Like, he's really serious. Like, in his country, they don't have militarized police like they do here.
Right. Another example of that, this is all from, I'm remembering these from a story I wrote. It's from a book called The Rise of the Warrior Cop by Radley Balco.
Yeah.
And so he kind of breaks down the history of policing. But in that, he says that a small town in the Midwest called Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, they got a tank. And so there's 20,000 people there. They don't need a tank. So this is about the militarization of the police. And it's, this is the system that they're operating out of. They're expanding and militarizing, and that's the nature of the beast, and that's what they do. So they don't need it. They did get a bunch of grenade launchers and all this other shit. But so...
They're going to use it against us eventually. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, they already are. I mean,
but I mean,
your ribs. That already happened. So, but what I wanted to say was that, it's a closed system. They also, one of the things they had to do to get off the last consent decree from the DOJ was to form an early warning system. So they employed something called Teams 2, TEEMS II, Teams 2. And Teams 2 is a system if you're a cop and all of a sudden there's all of your arrests if there's something anomalistic, like, hey, all the people he's arresting are disproportionately brown. And then they go, oh, he just got reassigned to East Los. So it makes sense, right? But as soon as there's any kind of systemic anomaly, it goes from them to their supervisor all the way up. Everybody has to check the box, Teams 2. And so they say they're going to root out bad apples and all that shit, right? But of course, it's a closed system. There's no eyes on it from the community. You can't look at it. I can't. Every month, I think, or every 2 weeks or something, each officer, every employee gets the computer-generated Teams report, and it breaks down their whole thing. So if you wanted to, you could use it against them if you could see it, but you don't even need to. If somebody wanted to, say, target an officer who they knew was abusive and just a massive amount of complaints came in, he wouldn't be able to be promoted or transferred, and so you could actually ruin his career. So that was just a little aside at the end, something I was thinking about, but it's a closed system. And so they've come up with a new commission or committee or whatever the hell it was, headed by a black woman, like you were just saying, who's her name's Tingarides. And she's married to this kind of high profile, I think he's a sergeant named Phil Tingarides. And so they're like a high profile couple at the LAPD. Him, because it's like, well, he can't be racist. He married this black woman. And her, she's like, well, she can't be a backup. She's a black woman. So she's spearheading it. This is the LAPD's solution to George Floyd uprising. And it's kind of like, you people have got to be kidding me. So it's the same old thing. That's the good old LAPD.
Yeah.
No signs of changing, just signs of finding money from somewhere else, because they're going to have to publicly lose some money. They take money from the municipal courts for their training. So maybe they can get some more from there, write some more tickets or something. They'll figure it out. I'm not worried about them. They're going to have more than enough money.
Yeah. So, yeah, what do you see as far as how do you see journalism as I know what you do. I view it as a form of activism. But how do you view it? As far as what do you consider yourself an activist, or are you just strictly a journalist? Like I told you, I consider myself just an activist with a lot of gear and cameras, and I film stuff. But yet, when the police are around, all of a sudden I'm a journalist because I don't want them to mess with me. You know what I mean? Is to me it's just a word, but I know to you it's a different issue. You know what I mean?
Well,
did that make sense? Sometimes I don't make sense.
Yeah, no, it's I don't. You know what? I consider myself somebody who. I don't really have like an ego investment in journalism or what it means and who's doing it. I know in the past what journalism meant was a bunch of overeducated white people talking amongst themselves, and we were allowed to listen in. You know what I mean?
Well, I see that. That's like pundits, but I mean, the way I think of journalists, like people that are out in the community reporting on what's going on. Like some journalists have lost their lives investigating things, like Michael Hastings or Serena Shim. And then there's and then what you're talking about is more just like, the guys who show up with the makeup and the pretty hair and the cameras and
those people that's a different story. Those people, those broadcast journalists, those people are very aggressive.
I don't consider them journalists.
No, but it's no, they're just out there. Well, they are. I don't know what it is, but so the journalism thing is like it used to be like New York Times smart white people like overeducated telling us what's up. But I mean, actual journalism is like, from my perspective, is like PM Beers live streaming, and showing you late PM Beers, later PM Beers, post-Occupy PM Beers, because she started doing the LA Police Commission, and so what I found was that, and all these actions very regularly, and BLM, and Melina Abdullah, of course, gives Patty Beers her propers, and her, she just came very directly with inclusion. And so there's Patty Beers live streaming from Decolonize LA City Hall, the 54-day encampment after the Riddell Jones verdict, and that is journalism. She's not telling me about what she thinks. She's actually showing me in the moment, and then perspective comes through kind of like limited comment for context, just so we can know. So I believe live streaming is journalism, but I also believe that there's value. I'm not talking about CNN or all these other, CNN is a fucking incendiary device selling pharmaceuticals to septuagenarians. But they, they really, I watch it sometimes. It's good to like go on 5 news channels and see what they're not talking about.
Yeah,
and they can tell you what. Yeah, and then you can look for that on Instagram or whatever. So Instagram, Twitter creeps me out. Facebook is hideous, and I use all of these platforms. So for me, I'm not thinking of myself as a journalist, but I'm thinking of myself as, and this is crazy when I kind of break it down to real, and I realize like actually what I'm doing with my life, but it's this. I have created a platform through access, through privilege, through writing for the LA Weekly or the LA Times or Los Angeles Magazine, through access, through connections, through privilege, to open that up and let somebody else's voice come through that, not mine. And mine, of course, because everything, I'm writing it, or I'm, taking the photograph, but, and just like, so using the live streaming Stephanie Arnold Williams on Skid Row, I believe that's journalism, or going to LA Can, or going to the Jackie Lacey action every Wednesday and live streaming like you do. That is, by the way, your stuff looks really good. That 360
camera is amazing. I'm so in love with that thing. I wish everyone could go get one right now.
It's ridiculous. When I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's what I think. So it's just like more kind of like trying to be of service, but also writing deep, investigative, long form pieces, because these pieces are really important. Just to like, it's less of like, it's more of just like, here's a historical record. This actually happened, and I'm going to track it down, put these pieces together so we can all look at it, and less about whether I think it's good or bad, and more just about let's all look at it. Here it is, if you want to.
Yeah, You
That
know,
seems like
but
journalism to me too.
there's about 4 or 5 people, PM Beers being one of them. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be out there with cameras. I'd still be out there, but I wouldn't have cameras or anything probably. It's just, that's a
It's like
weird
a public
thing.
service, right?
Yeah, because I
What PM
remember
Beers is doing is live
videos of
streaming.
people teaching me how to live stream, showing me what's needed, teaching me about these batteries and this and that and stuff. You know, I've always known about
Yes.
cameras because I've been into photography, but going out and filming stuff, you know, at protests is a whole other thing. I'm used to fighting Nazis at protests back in the day or whatever. Filming wasn't the main. I started filming the
Right.
police when they beat my ass and I had issues, and then I got a case over filming the police after that. But yeah, I mean, these people, like you said, they are in my mind, and they should be in everyone's mind, legitimate journalists, amazing journalists, and what they do is important and inspiring too. Like, it's like they plant seeds and then it grows and tree. You know what I mean? Like 4 or 5 people I watched and I started doing. You know, some people probably watch me, and my whole thing is get out there and film the police. That's what I want everyone to do. So,
Hmm.
I've seen people doing it now because of me. I got friends who do it because of me and stuff, and that's what I think it's about, spreading like a virus.
Yes, because this is what you're talking about now is very much the awakening that I had at Occupy and at Occupy LA in 2011 when there was 500 tents at City Hall, and so that when I started to understand the power of it and started to see people live stream and what's that guy's name? Rev Z, Revolution Z, all those people, those big
That's
live
another
streamers.
one of the inspirations. Yeah, definitely.
Right. And even though he turned out to be Psycho Tim Pool because he was doing it well, and I don't know what he's doing. I was just looking at his Facebook feed this morning. I don't
He's
know
doing some Nazi shit, I bet you.
what is he doing? He's just a provocateur, right? So, but anyways, but Occupy was really what informed me and what compelled me to like just jump in and live stream. And now when I go to a protest, it's not in terms of thinking like, I will go to the BLMLA stuff because I know who they are and I know who's organizing and what they're doing, and or LA Can or something, and then Los Angeles Community Action Network, LA Can, and live stream them. But when I'm there, I would go anyways. But when I'm there, I'm like, well, I'm live streaming on Halves, and like thousands of people like jump on that, and they're posted all over, and you can see them. They get a lot of eyes on them. So I'm like, oh, this is I could actually be of service here if they're interested, and if they think it's you know. And then because I know a bit about their history, I can like offer some context. Like if I'm, if I'm at the Wednesday Jackie Lacey protest where I see you, it's like, well, I actually know the backstory, and this is 3-year-old action, ongoing action. Those BLM, those Black Lives Matter Los Angeles actions are so long. They're like the longest actions, you know? 54-day, 10 camp, 3-year Jackie Lacey protest. Is it 3 years old? It is, right?
I believe it's 3 or 4. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it's crazy. So, and so it's just like it is journalism. Like right now, I'm writing a story for a magazine about. It's really about the connecting, like what happened at Occupy, and what I'm starting to realize. I'm just going back and reading everything I wrote and things other people wrote from that time, and what I realized is that the big awakening that was that everybody got networked. And it was, it's Facebook and some streaming platforms and other, Twitter for some people, or Instagram wasn't here yet, but it was Facebook. People got network, and you could see where the action was. And yes, the police could see it, but who cares? And that's the beginning of like what spiderwebbed into like a lot of organizing very consistently since that time. And in 2013, when Black Lives Matter happened, those people were already out organizing for actions and stuff for Oscar Grant protests. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was that in some way all these things coalesced, and so no, that was before Occupy, wasn't it?
I don't know. Like I wasn't
Oscar
really
Grant got
involved
killed.
with Occupy
Yeah,
back in the day.
Oscar Grant was 2009, and then Occupy was like 11, and Black Lives Matter was 2013. So
Yeah,
the
I was always just out there when the police murdered somebody, but Occupy I didn't really get into too much. I don't know why. I mean, I knew it was happening. I was doing a lot of stuff back then with Anonymous, and then a bunch of anti-fascist cats out in Pomona, where I was living at the time. We was going to Riverside to fight Nazis because, for me, it was more personal. And Nazis had killed one of my buddies brutally, so I just wanted to get Nazis. I didn't care which Nazis. We've seen a Nazi, it was war. That was our whole goal: fight Nazis.
I'm sorry to hear that you lost your friend.
Yeah, no, I mean that was a long time ago. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned Anonymous, and so all of these things kind of coalesced, and they created these giant networks where all of a sudden you can just like go on Facebook and be like, okay, what's happening this week or next week, or what did I miss? And if you know who's organizing or how to, get to the figure out who it is, and if it's something that you want to go to, it's like, well, there it all is. And so, people were organizing for Oscar Grant already, and some of those people I think were involved in the beginning of BLMLA. So the history of it and the kind of the evolution of communication and how it affects what's happening right now, and how George Floyd's murder, was these kids, the class of 2020 graduated into like this BLM uprising, and they're so networked and TikToked, and so it's massively powerful in a way that I don't think has ever been before.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean BLM. I know there's an organization. I just believe Black Lives Matter. I'm a really decentralized kind of person. I will not join your group. That's basically,
right.
I might support your group. I might work alongside with your group, but I'm not going to join your group. A bunch of us started some stuff called the Union, because it's like, do your thing, get your crew together, do it. I'm just not a firm believer in, large organized groups with leaders, and it's just not my thing. I mean, I'm sure it works for others, but not for me. But yeah, I mean, I support. I don't know how to describe it. Like, I support Black Lives Matter LA. I'm there. I'll do whatever to help out. I'll defend the people there. But like, yeah, I'm not a member of any groups.
Right. But what I was saying is, like, can you imagine if Fred Hampton, for example, was here now, the power of his amplified voice in what would be possible. But, I don't.
I wonder, though. I wonder, because it's like some people I really look up to kind of changed with the times. I mean, you got certain Black Panthers that were back then now supporting Biden. You got Chelsea Manning, who I supported crazily. She started hanging out with Nazis the minute she got out. It's just, I don't really look up. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking forward to Jeremy Hammond getting out of prison. That's my next person I look up to. I hope, I hope everything goes good with him. But I doubt he'll sell out. He wouldn't sell out to get less time. I doubt he's going to get out and sell out.
Right. And again, whatever happens, we're all going to know. And we're going to know pretty much in real time. Yeah, because of journalism. I mean, I call live streaming journalism VJs. I call them VJs, video journalists. But let's just talk about Chelsea for a minute, because when Chelsea, I supported Chelsea too. I made a bunch of memes and I wrote a story about Chelsea, and it was published, and I sent it to her family, and they put it on their website, and I was like, yeah, I want to support Chelsea. And then she got out, and she came out as a Republican. And so, but I think that's changed now since the last time she got locked up. They had some sort of like conversion experience, and now they're not a Republican anymore. I heard, so I don't know.
I didn't even know she came out as a Republican. I just thought she was hanging with fascists because of punk ass Cassandra was her friend and wrote to her in jail or something. That was what I had heard. I don't know, but
Cassandra, what's her last name?
Starts with this. Oh god damn, I can't remember. It's not worth remembering. Nazi.
She was on. Didn't she like
Fairbanks? Nazi Fairbanks.
Oh yeah, Cassandra Fairbanks. Didn't she like connect to Tim Pool at some time?
Yeah, all those fascists from We Are Change back in the day that I didn't believe were fascists turned fascist. It's just insane.
Well, Tim Pool, I didn't really get. You know, I interviewed Tim Pool in Tim Pool's in Radicalized. He's in the Radicalized movie, and I interviewed him. And at the time, I remember I was like really impressed by Tim Pool for some reason. I don't know why, but I was like, "Ooh, it's Tim Pool." And there was two people that were there this one night, and one of them was Scott Olson. Remember the Marine who got shot with a projectile and got a traumatic brain injury, like in Minnesota.
Yeah,
that was in Minnesota too. It all jumps off in Minnesota, and so I interviewed Scott Olson, and I was like, I just couldn't stop till like I talked to Tim Pool, and now Tim Pool is like, I don't know why we're even saying his name, but like
I didn't know who he was until he was a Nazi. So I've hated him my whole time knowing him. I hate having the same name as him, or him having the same name as me. It could have been Tom Pool. Would have been much better for me.
Well, what are you gonna do?
Like hearing the thing, I had to look. Our host from tonight, the upcoming show tonight, is like, fuck Tim Fash. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh, Fash, that's Tim Pool.
Now, you know, let's talk about the Black Unity Camp.
Yeah. That's...
So, north, south, east, west, right? It's in Grand Park, right across the street from the west face of City Hall.
Yeah, I've taken some pictures of it. Just for the people who don't know, there's a camp called the Black Unity Camp. And like you just said, it's in Grand Park, and it's a bunch of tents, and it's got a little gate around it, and it's got a giant sign in front that says Black Unity Camp. But go ahead. I just wanted to let the people know what we're talking about. Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know much about it because I decided not to infiltrate the Black Unity Camp. But you know, I know people who are in there. There's like 50 people maybe camping out. It's in Grand Park, and the police just recently, I think as a couple days ago, posted the first, this is one of the tactics, they posted the first, they posted not an eviction notice, but the rules of the park. Everybody has to be out at 10:30 or whatever. And so the Black Unity Camp is the temporary autonomous zone where they're creating the future they want to live in.
They're on high alert right now. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get evicted.
They're scared they're going to be evicted. The sign, like you said, they're putting up new signs, and they got more surveillance. Which I don't get. Yeah, it's. I think it's county property too. So wouldn't the sheriffs have to be the ones to evict them?
I don't know, but I know that it's got to be like the most heavily surveilled block or area of downtown Los Angeles, which is like London. It is like so hyper surveilled. But in that particular, like two sides of it are buildings, and a block down the third side of it's another building. So it's like a very perfect, easy place to contain and corral and surveil people. And so that's where the Black Unity Camp is. And they
had a camp. They had a camp a couple of years ago in front of the detention center. You know, the DTLA detention center, Metro Detention Center, and it was there. Yeah, the ice camp. It was there. Oh, did you go by there?
Yeah. No, I was in Oregon.
Oh yeah, I was there a lot, like almost every day. It's and they held that one out for I don't know how many days, like 50 something days, and eventually it kind of dwindled itself away. The feds kind of just let it go. There became a lot of internal problems within it and stuff, and the numbers started dwindling. People couldn't keep it up. It's just I think is the story, and people started saying kids in cages, this is yesterday's news, we're going to worry about something else. The support kind of fell for it, which sucks, because kids are still in cages and nothing got solved, and we still got to deal with that.
Well, temporary autonomous zones are like school, among other things, but there's also, they're in the middle of the street of a major metropolitan area, and so there's a lot of people that, City Hall's 2 blocks from Skid Row. So where there's always going to, it's the same thing over. There's provocateurs, there's some cops in there, but really a bunch of people who are very serious about it. And then also some trauma survivors. It gets very challenging in that environment, and the external pressure from the police and movement. But you can expand that circle a little bit, and just at City Hall, there's a number of different groups organizing, and they have different intentions, and some of them are better than others. And there's also a lot of young new people who are here in this area, this geography that has such a rich history of resistance in Los Angeles. They're in this geography they're here for the first time. They have no idea what the LAPD and the Sheriff's Department are capable of, and what they're capable of is murder and brutality. But they also don't know that, I was watching all these people laying around on the lawn, and somebody was arguing, somebody had a bullhorn, blah, blah, blah. What they don't realize is that they're in somebody's living room. There's like 50 to 100 people who actually live at City Hall and City Hall East, who sleep there every night. And a lot of those people are there because they feel safe there, and a lot of them seem to be having, psychiatric crises and mental health crises, and are homeless and stuff. And
that was what I got into almost a few fights about during the mini uprising we had for a few days. I didn't want people going into the homeless encampments. I want smash stores, burn down banks, do anything you want. Don't go through here. Don't bring the police to where these people are. And usually people listen, but some people are like getting upset, like, you're trying to tell us how we can protest. These people got to live here. They don't understand that. That's like, I'm glad you said that, because that's something people really need to think about. These people didn't ask for this. These people aren't the problem. They're not the wealthy ones screwing people over. They're not the ones with the power to abuse people. They're not the police murdering somebody. Stay the fuck out of their area. Let them have some peace. If they want to join the protest, they'll come and join it.
Right, and they're having their own protest now. I think it's every Friday at 5 on 5th and San Pedro. See Stephanie Arnold Williams' Facebook page, and she live streams everything. So that's new. They came, it's interesting. This is kind of an interesting little story. So I was on Skid Row like 3 weeks ago with Stephanie Arnold Williams. She's my favorite on Skid Row. And she and her partner, who's a guy named King Pharaoh, who you might know. He's singing the hook in that song. I think it's a game. It's Hands Up, Don't Shoot, that you hear a lot. That's him singing. So they walked to Skid Row because they wanted to join the protest. I mean, they walked to City Hall, and so I was live streaming it. I followed him. We walked all the way to City Hall from Skid Row, and it's Skid Row, and he came with his bike with a giant speaker on it, playing that song, Hands Up, Don't Shoot, with him singing, right? And it turned into a conflict because some group that was organizing there, who I'm not really sure who they are, they confronted him. They were telling him, like, turn down your music. And it turned into a fight, like a physical altercation, because it's like, oh my God, you people have no idea where you are or who's coming from where and who's affiliated and who else is here. And so it's like, there's a lot of potential, like, bad outcomes when you get this many people. So in the camp across the street, I'm really amazed and respectful of them being there for as long as they've been to the Black Unity Camp, and for whatever issues or problems that they're having. Occupy was a temporary autonomous zone, and I'm from, I went to my first peace protest in the very early 70s. Actually, I think it was in the 60s when I was just a child. And so I learned a lot at the temporary autonomous zone at Occupy, and got a lot of new books and relearned some things that I already knew. So I think it's very important. And also, there's people there who you consider elders in this scenario, Amari, and people like that who are out there talking.
You sent me some pictures of Amari. Amari's awesome.
Yeah, Amari. He's got a podcast. You know what it's called?
I just got Instagram and I saw it, but when I try to click on it, I can't get the audio, so I don't know what's going on with that. I saw him last week. I'll probably see him this week too.
Yeah, so it's Amari Shakur, and I don't know what his podcast name is, but I'm gonna look for it while we're talking.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure this
No.
Instagram thing out, so I'm useless on there right now. I'm too new.
You can do it. Don't quit.
Well, I can't quit because my YouTube, in order to stream on YouTube, all of a sudden you need 1,000 subscribers because I used to stream on YouTube. So yeah, I'm waiting. I need about 600 or 700 more subscribers on my YouTube channel to be able to stream again. And you know what?
What's
I don't know.
YouTube channel?
People's Radio United YouTube. But the thing about it is, the day they changed the rules, I was streaming and there was a SWAT team at a motel with a tank in the street, and I was trying to stream on YouTube and it wouldn't work. It's telling me we made changes to our policy. You have to read this. You can no longer live stream, and this shit's all going down in front of me. So I grabbed my Canon camera and I went out, and then I got socked in the chest with a machine gun. They told me I couldn't be on the street I live on or they were going to arrest me. That was the day I decided I needed to have a drone so I could have went down the block and still watched, because I got put off the block there, or I'd have been arrested.
Man, you gotta be so fast and like alert and on. That's part of why it's so stressful. It's like one time I got beat up by the police and videoed it. Like, I literally videoed it.
I got a year-long court case for that. I was hospitalized. Oh, this was out here. I was hospitalized in Pomona. I was hospitalized, and then I got a year-long court case just so the judge would drop it later after I couldn't do anything, and he wouldn't allow any video evidence in court, not one. And two other people had videotaped it. Yeah, it was insane. Wow. They just were there to protect the pigs. That was the whole thing.
Yes, that is part of that's their directive. It is like, but you gotta be on it and stay on it. I noticed something that that was at the, what was that protest? It was in Chicago in like 2012 or 2011. I can't remember. It was a big one, very violent. And, I got literally beat up by the police 3 times in 2 days. Smashing with the head with a bicycle, and I videoed all of this. And then when I came back to LA and I looked at the footage, I think that was right before that big art walk melee, and the police went crazy and attacked everybody during the art walk and started shooting people with rubber bullets. And
was that in LA?
That young girl, shot that girl in the face. What I noticed for the first time when I looked back at my footage was like before they kind of teed off on me in Chicago. Before that happened, I was always moving towards the action, but in all this other footage, now I'm moving away. As soon as the police show up, you can see me back. I can see my footage. I'm backing up and like ducking behind cars. I'm totally traumatized.
Yeah, those things hurt, man.
It's scary.
They aim for me. They hate me because I film these cops every day. Like there's streets when I go on, every little hoodster on the block's happy because they know the police aren't going to mess with nobody because they don't want to get filmed and have to hear my big ass mouth cursing them out. So they just won't mess with people when I'm around. And it's like, it's really crazy. But cops hate cameras. For people who are supposed to be so upright, so accountable, and so, so great, heroic, whatever it is, they sure are scared of cameras picking up what they're going to do.
You're like Jasmine Abdullah live streaming. It's a numbers game, though. If you're going to be out there doing it, and from my perspective, you said journalist, and yeah, all right, a journalist, fine. I mean, I'm not a journalist that a lot of people would hire at this point. Sometimes, so I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that. Who knows?
Well, but I said that because when I say I'm a journalist, I have a certain protection, quote unquote. You know what I mean? If I say I'm just an activist, I could say I have. It's just a different thing. They don't respect me either way, but I pretend as if I have all these actual rights under the Constitution because, First Amendment journalism, and they don't care about those rights either, but sometimes it helps a little bit once in a while.
Well, here's what I think. I think if I'm out there and I got a camera and I'm not organizing or something like that in some way, and I'm out there as a journalist, I'm in the game. So it's like I made the choice to put myself in this position, and so it's it's a numbers game. Sooner or later, you're gonna get like shot with projectiles and get your ribs
Oh
broken
yeah.
and get hit with bicycles. Yeah, it's gonna happen. And when there's a class action suit from the NLG for all these protests during this George Floyd uprising, and that is it's about people being arrested, but also people being shot with projectiles and shit. And I've never been part of one of these before, and I'm not going to sit around and wait for the check. But I was like, no, this time I'm going to actually do it, and I sent him pictures and stuff because you know the idea that they're standing here with all of these young people teeing off and just blasting out with their less lethal projectiles. Which, by the way, I'm not sure if you're aware. I think I told you this. The LA County Sheriff's Department actually develops and produces less lethal technology. They make it so
Wow.
they're field testing their product out there with their friends, the LAPD, and the idea that they're just teeing off and like as well as I do what can happen when people get shot in the face with these things. I mentioned at that art walk melee I saw a young woman shot in the face and it just like split her face open. I think she was like 18, and so these less than Scott Olson, the Marine at Occupy Oakland.
Yeah.
That's traumatic. Yeah, he did like tours as a Marine in Iraq, and he was uninjured until he got shot in the head by the by the Oakland police, and he had a traumatic brain injury. So the idea that they're just teeing off with these groups of all these young people, and there's people there that, from my perspective, class of 2020, Gen Z, they're out there, young white girls in booty shorts with their fist up. I think it's a good thing this time around because they're learning a lot, and they're showing up at these protests because of COVID, because they can't go to the gym and the beach and all that shit. But really, that's not what I found. I found that everybody, I talked to a lot of very young people, especially, and live streaming all these protests, and especially made sure to talk to like young white people in the street. And they all said the same thing. They knew why they were there. They were talking about policy. They were talking about voting. This is not Occupy. But they were there for the party too, I'm sure, which is great. But nobody stumbled into like the Black Lives Matter revolution without knowing these young people, without knowing where they are and why they're there, and they're there to support. On my way out of that protest where I got shot in the ankle, that was on the 25th, I lectured a group of cops of LAPD standing there. I rolled up my pants, and I was like, look at this shit. Look at this shit. Will you people please be careful? There are a bunch of young people out who have no idea what you are capable of. And they were all like looking at me like, yes, sir, yes, sir. But of course they were just like, going 5'9", 160, Caucasian, black.
Yeah. Did you have your big lens? They take you seriously with that lens, I bet.
That lens is a very strange thing because, as I told you, I've been live streaming with no camera. I've been out in the streets with like $20,000 worth of video gear for years, camping at occupying a tent. Never like had a problem ever once. By the way, nobody ever robbed me or tried to jack me. But then so now if I'm out there live streaming with just my little cell phone, it's amazing like the disrespect that you get from news crews, from the police, from everybody, and it's very telling. And I'm also like a middle-aged white man, which of course is a very different way to be in the street with the police, because we all know they're not going to shoot me. They're not going to shoot me. Chances are.
I was going to say, I've shut a lot of news crews down and make them leave, or don't let them go live. They just especially that what's his name, Bill Mulligan from Fox. That dude's a little bitch. I got one video of him so butthurt he had to call security in. He is such an asshole.
Well, people, that's actually like the most valid tactic to like interrupt, to throw a wrench in their works, because what they're doing is like hideously destructive. And if you confront them in some way, you get people who think that's like, I don't know, maybe not a good idea, but it's like there's lots of ways to do it too, right? But what they're doing out there, and it's like, and it's not a personal judgment. It's like not like the police either. I'm not not in a position to be judging anybody, anyways. But it's not a personal judgment in any way. It's and again, this perspective of a middle-aged white man who's had lots of journalism jobs and has a platform, blah 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 blah. But I'm not out there, like a black man with a camera, which is a very different experience, I'm sure. But the live streaming thing, it's so humbling, right? When you're just out there with your little cell phone. People like push you out of the way. I don't mean people at the protest. People at protests always. Here's what I want to say. These protests, how long is this, the George Floyd uprising protest have been going on? Like, is it 3 months now?
It's been quite a while.
I've never had this experience that I've had out there, and I've been in so many crowds with a camera over the years and so many protests like you have. But I kept having this experience where like black people were coming up to me randomly who I don't know and saying things like, "I love you and thank you for showing up here." And it just kept happening over and over. I was just like, holy shit, I'm in the middle of like this love bomb.
I never get no love like that.
Well,
but you're more outgoing. I'm more antisocial, I think.
I'll get right in the mix, and it's very simple too. And this as well as I do. If somebody doesn't want to be in your frame, all you have to do is look at them and they'll let you know. It's very simple. You can just tell, right? They'll look at you menacingly or just like, give you a head nod or something. And it's so easy just to, what my secret weapon is, because I've gotten such crazy access over the years to places where I'm like, I can't believe they let me in here. It's very simple. It's just like, just show up and be very honest and direct about who you are and what you're doing there and what your intentions are. And make sure to be telling the truth and not trying to like steal a shot or something, just straight up. And then it'll be very apparent whether like you can shoot or not, but it's almost always like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've had big debates over stuff like this before. Because my opinion, I mean, let me know if yours varies, because I think most people's varies from mine, is that if we're in an area where there's news media, 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 people with their cell phones live streaming, cops on roofs with cameras, helicopters with cameras, cops on the ground with cameras and everything, then I can shoot anything I want. But now if we're in another situation where it's a small group and there's no cameras around, I'm going to have my camera off or not with me, because that stuff doesn't need to be broadcast. However, if the police are interacting with anybody for anything, the camera's going to be running on the police. That's just how I look at it. I mean, if everyone else has a camera going, what the hell's the difference in my camera? I'm the one who will delete footage or get rid of it. These other people are going to try to make money off it or, air it on their station or whatever. Or some of them are just live streaming already. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Yeah, but if I am taking a picture of a group of people or doing a video, I'll ask them first. If it's like pointed directly at somebody, then I'll talk and I'll say, is it cool? And they'll say yeah or no. And I'll respect that.
Right, of course. And again, like as a middle-aged white man with a camera at a Black Lives Matter protest, I wanted to be like super sensitive to, yes, everybody's in the street. They have no expectation of privacy. This is public. I legally have the right to film anybody and all that stuff. And that's all true. And if we're talking about the police or some provocateur like you, I'll get in there. I'll put my body between the cops and people. I'll do shit like that with a camera or without it. And if people want me to do that, and if not, then not. But there's also, for me, like a kind of sensitivity question or a sensitivity, like, here's an example. Remember when the police murdered Jesse Romero in 2016 during the during the Decolonize LA City Hall BLM LA action? That I was at, so after that happened, the family did like a press conference at the police station. Where was that? Boyle Heights or something. And so I went there and I started interviewing people. I started talking to them. I was like, oh, that must be the mom. That must be the dad, maybe. And there were some other families there who lost their children after they were murdered by the Los Angeles Police Department. And so I was interviewing the friends, and they were like just the homies. And they were like, yeah, they killed our friend. It's really bad. And then there was three of them. Then the third one, I started talking to him, and he said, yeah, well, he was always really good to me. He always helped me with my homework, and the tears started flowing, and I was like, oh shit, this must be the little brother. So I turned the camera off him, and I was like, okay, cut. Where's your mom? Is she over there? Let's go by her. And it was just like that, or is something that's like, turn the camera off, man. Or the other version of that would be like, somebody who lost a child breaking down at the LA Police Commission, and somebody publicly grieving like that. It's like usually they're very open to that, to having that be videoed, and you could tell just with the little look to them. Is it cool? And they'll be like, yes, please, or ignore you, or like, no. So I'm always like looking for that balance and the sensitivity with like people, even if they're in the street with a sign, because there's lots of people I could take lots of pictures. I can easily divert my camera. And then the next point you made, which is where it gets tricky, and actually PM Beers is very good at this, and this is where I kind of learned this, when to just intuitively know that it's to turn your phone, your camera, your stream away from something that's happening. And then the part where when the police get violent, it's also tricky. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because a lot of times I get stuff that incriminates myself. It looks like a Call of Duty game with my hand doing stuff. So I gotta be extra careful, because I just got the camera running and I'm doing stuff. I didn't really think about that a few years back. When some stuff went down, I was like, wow, this video could like lock me the hell up for a while. And I had it on my thing. You know what I mean? I really had to think about that.
Or really harm someone, It's so tricky, right? But it's a kind of like it's like a sixth sense. You know what I mean? And I kind of picked this up again from PM Beers, because I was like I was filming her live streaming. And part of it was like, I learned to refine that skill. I want to say something else about live streaming. I've become a much better live streamer. In the beginning, I was a terrible live streamer. I was the worst. Like, I started because I really started doing it at the Caravan. It's like, I feel very awkward and uncomfortable sitting here in this situation with all of these people on this bus filming them. I felt like I was taking something, right? And I wasn't comfortable with it. And so I was very nervously like talking way too much. And like, I don't speak Spanish. So it was like I learned a lot quick about like, okay, just give some context and shut the fuck up. And then if there's somebody to interview, just ask them a simple question and listen. And it took a long time to get there. And then I went through the whole period where I was like not saying anything. And people were like, what the fuck's going on? Where is this? Who are you? Right? And so the balance between that and the intuitive sense of what not to be putting on my stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to learn that kind of. Good thing I didn't learn it the hard way. I learned before it had to be learned the hard way for me or anybody else. But
I accidentally live streamed cartel people in Zona Norte and TJ trafficking people. Like, I didn't realize that that's what it was or what was happening, and drew their attention and got into like a very kind of sketchy situation there for a minute.
Wow. And
so it's like, I know for so many reasons, it's like, wow, this is actually very powerful tool, this live stream, right?
Oh, it is. Sometimes I lie and say I'm live streaming when I'm not, when the cops start getting super aggressive. I'll be like, you know how many thousand people watching you right now? Do whatever you want. Watch what happens. Knowing I'm just recording.
Yeah,
It's just
because
kind of
you kind
bluffing.
of have to be. You have to be fearless in a way to get out there. Because if I start to think about like what I'm actually doing, I might reconsider not doing it. But the motivation for me is, same and only different, I'm sure, for you. But it's like, look, man, once you know 20 people whose families have been victimized because the LAPD killed them, and now, the kids, the kid Sarko from Honduras, from that LA Los Angeles magazine story. He, I'm friends with his mom and his grandma who raised him and his sister on Facebook, and you know what's going on with them. And every year when the anniversary of his death comes, or his birthday or Christmas or whatever, it's just like, yeah, it never ends. And so it's more than enough motivation. I can surely get my ass out into the street and live stream for a few hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
I mean,
course.
everything together is needed. Like, every person is doing what they do, and it all comes together for the movement. That's the way I see it. We're all kind of like a bunch of ants working toward a common goal in different ways, with maybe different ideas about how it should be done. Because you don't know how many times you can watch some of my videos time and time again. Don't fight. Stop being violent. I've had people come and tell me, pretend like you don't know me when the police are around because it brings shit on me. I'm like, wow. Because, yeah, I'm all about revolution, however it goes. Whether it's bloody and violent, and I don't think there's a way to do it peacefully, in my opinion. I wish there was. But you're dealing with a fascist, warmongering enemy that's oppressing people. Sometimes you have to play the game by their rules in order to beat them. But I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, when the question I keep asking myself is, so where's the future? Where's all this going? Where's all this uprise? And I interviewed Melina on my live stream a while ago, and she said just exactly what you would think she said. And what she talked about was, it's about harnessing all of this energy and catalyze change. I know this is my language, not hers, but that was the thrust of it. And so, that's happening right now, and everybody's got a lot of different people have a lot of different ideas how to do that. And what I see is this, Tim: people organizing and collaborating with other people who are organizing specifically aimed at, changing policy, politics, but having a direct impact. Now, of course, and abolishing the police and all these different things, and defunding the police. But what I see, and especially because I talk to so many, class of 2020 kids, is that this is different than Occupy. This is more of like not people who are trying to affect core systemic change through direct action. I'm talking about, BLMLA and LA Can and the other group I can't remember the name of. And so from part of me thinks like this is a white system and black people can revise it in any way, but it's still going to be that thing. But I have a very different sense of that now. And I have a sense that like that actually is a very practical, real solution to transforming systemic, institutionalized racism. But it doesn't change the fact that we live in capitalism.
Exactly.
These things are all interconnected. Yeah, it doesn't connect it. They're interconnected, but these things have, a life of their own and a death of their own as well. And I see what's happening, the financial upheaval because of COVID-19 has just been such a huge reveal to so many people about what we actually have for resources, what we don't have for resources, who's getting them, who's not. And those things are very much point in the directions of, Black Lives Matter. I'm saying Black Lives Matter, but you know what I mean, Black activism and people who are focused on that has a very direct impact on that, because that's where all the systemic racism is revealed in the system. You know, it's not just about a cultural indoctrination. It's about these are in the policy. Nixon, Reagan, all those things from the 70s that erupted and gave us this prison industrial complex. But the COVID reveal, I think, is going to have a lasting impact. What comes after capitalism, I don't know, but we're in end stage capitalism, and that really points that out as well. From my guess, this is just a guess, but I'm a tiny little bit of an expert here. I would say there's 150,000 people in LA County right now who are homeless, and the projected numbers coming for how many people are going to be out because of evictions are going to put a staggering number of people into the streets, and it's happening right now in front of our eyes. And you know, the Trump administration withholding money and the political, well, it's not just obviously, it's any administration. So I think that there's big change afoot, and there's so much crossover between who's organizing, what they're organizing for. I think we're at a time of really a great big shift in the tectonic plates. I think everything's going to be different in 10 years. What do you think?
I hope things are different in a way that's favorable to the people in the next 10 years. I don't know. I mean, I'm an anarchist, so it's like I see the people have a choice between two white supremacists. They're going to basically do the same thing. And like I've said before, politics to me is like a roller coaster. The Republicans come in, do a whole bunch of damage. The Democrats come in and continue that damage, throw the people a bone. Then the Republicans come in, do more damage. Then the Democrats come in and continue that damage and throw the people a little bone. And it's just like an ongoing, never-ending cycle of white supremacist bullshit.
Right, but yeah, dominance. It's but what I'm saying is that, excuse me, sorry. What I'm saying is that the whole thing is blowing up as a big fat orange cartoon in Washington, D.C. And I think the number of reveals, and, you know, Stephen Miller and the fascist ideology around, you know, migration and everything that's come out of there has really thrown a wrench. Yes, we're going to have fucking Joe Biden or whatever for 4 years, and then I see, like, okay, now we've got the occupiers, you know, Cortez, all these women, and because I think that's really what's happening. I think women aren't taking over. Go ahead.
Cortez used to say abolish ICE. Then her own party put her to the fire. She goes, when I say abolish ICE, I don't mean abolish ICE, I mean reform ICE. She's a real big backpedaler on quite a few things, which is quite disappointing.
Well, what did you expect, man? Let's just get real for a second here. This is like when Barack Obama got elected. Barack Obama was a politician from Chicago. I'm born in Chicago. I lived there part of my childhood. So it's like I understand. I was in Chicago as a young child in like 68, 69, you know, from the riots. Yeah. I remember it very clearly. So Chicago is like, you know, it's like the epicenter of dirty politician. I mean, daily. Look at the history of Chicago. So it's like Barack Obama was like black, which was like a beautiful thing, and I love it. But it was like, oh, this dude's a politician from Chicago. What the fuck do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen with Joe Biden? What do you think is going to happen with Cortez? But I see a big evolution because there are a lot of women and occupiers in office, and all of these black women who are judges who got elected, or I don't know how, if they're all elected or appointed or whatever. So yeah, I can't. Yeah, well, I don't want to like ignore that because in terms of evidence of some shift, you know what I mean? It's like, look, there's indigenous women taking political positions now. Yes, the system is corrupt. Yes, it's all on its way out. It's going to burn and crash and die. We're in end-stage capitalism, and I don't know what comes next. But sadly, they say end-stage capitalism is always followed historically by fascism. So I don't know what comes after. But I don't necessarily think this is going to play out by the rules of history. And what I'm saying is this. I want to be hopeful because there are things to be hopeful for.
I agree. I mean, it's good to be hopeful. But I just think people need to be ready to fight too, for real fight if it happens. I don't know. You know what they say, revolution has come, time to pick up a gun, right?
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I'm like complete pacifist by my ideology, and I'm looking for like non-violence, but I'm not suggesting that that's how change is going to happen, because riots work and diversity of tactics work and all that stuff works. But I hold that there is a different kind of more compassionate. I really believe this is happening, by the way. I'm not just saying it. I think it has to do with women. I think women are like, it's not like they're taking over. It's like they took over. That happened. And so that's a big shift. I'm very hopeful that that's going to produce, and I'm not saying like women have all the answers. I'm not talking about Hillary Clinton and Sarah Palin, but I'm saying there's some women showing up and standing up, and that's very helpful.
Oh, it is. No, I hope you're right. I mean, I really do. I'm a skeptic on a lot of things. It's just, I know history has a tendency to repeat itself and things like that.
Well, do you think that what do you think about having leaders?
I think it's good to have people that can do things, like get things moving, but I don't like people, quote unquote, in charge of other people. Or it's like I see different kinds of activists on the streets, right? Like there's me, who's just kind of there watching the edges, I'm just kind of watching, what are the police doing, what's everybody doing. I might go in and film a little bit, but I'm really just trying to make sure that people are safe, what cars are pulling up, who's doing what. I have PTSD, and I have like I can't think what it's called right now, but it's like I'm really paranoid, and I kind of got to look around, and I can't have things behind me too much. So I'm always watching everything. What are the cops doing? How are they acting different than normal? And what should I inform the people about if I see something? And then there's activists there that are kind of just, they don't care. They're ready to fight, whatever, but they're more relaxed than I am because they don't have PTSD probably. And then you got like the quote unquote professional activists there's a couple of them everywhere, and they just always want to be around the cameras and make the nice poses and give the speeches and be on the cameras. And then everybody else is just, a lot of people are new, especially now. It's just like a lot of these people, they don't know what's happening around them. They're not even paying attention. And that scares me. Like, I don't know if we need to have classes. Like, you need people watching the police, what they're doing, because anytime they could shift up. There's been times the police was getting ready to kettle people, and I got to be like, spread out, do this, do that. And I feel crappy shouting orders, but it's an immediate thing. So, I mean, there's got to be people that watch out and do stuff, but leaders, I don't believe in. A lot of people want to be leaders, but those people, I just kind of, I don't know how to, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't look down on them, but I'd be like, why do you want your name out there? Why do you want to lead? Why do you need this? Like, we're the people. We have the same goals. Nobody's special. In my opinion, nobody's special. We're all equal. We're all the same. Some people might have more charisma or be able to do things and get people out there. That's their skill, and that's good. But everybody's needed, and nobody's more important than anybody. And I mean, I think I have this chip on my shoulder from Anonymous, because Anonymous was overrun with egomaniacs, and these people were real bastards, and they'd hurt some people that they could. And I'd always have to be defending people against these assholes who supposedly were activists with the same goal of me, activist, whatever, right? So yeah, I think I have issues from that with leadership.
Well, just back to about live streaming and where I put my lens. The thing about it is when people are organizing in the street like that, and you're in these where it's a very heightened, emotional, politically charged environment, and especially in like major metropolitan area like downtown Los Angeles, which is like, the perfect place to organize. There's a lot of people there who are, affected by or victimized by the subject of the protest, of the issue that's being protested. And so they're there. And so I want to always remember that, like, there's people who are traumatized, and people who are coming from with such PTSD and trauma and backstory of being victimized and oppressed and all that. So, people who are trauma survivors will sometimes act out. I'm not saying everybody's doing this. I'm saying I want to give everybody in that arena a very wide berth and not react and not engage. An example is that there was a skirmish line with the cops in front of the LAPD. It was like 4 weeks ago, across from City Hall. And, it wasn't a big deal. It's the kind of thing you've seen a million times. People lined up on one side, a line of cops on the other side. People are screaming and yelling at the cops. And the cops are just standing there. And that goes on for a long time. So in the middle of it, the more police backup came up and people started getting nervous and people started freaking out just a little bit. And there was, there's always the guy or person who's walking through, telling everybody to step back, and they're taking it upon themselves to whatever. And so this guy came in and he like put his hands on me. He was a young black guy, put his hands up both on my shoulders and said, "Step back." And so I said, "Okay, step back." Because like in another situation, I'd be like, "Don't fucking touch me." But in this situation, I have to remember that I'm not in this situation as somebody's been victimized. I'm not in this situation. I'm there by choice to support. If somebody's victimized, we're all victimized. And yes, that's all true. But I'm not at this protest because my life has been compromised or diminished or whatever. I've been negatively impacted. I'm there just to back somebody up if I can. And so I want to really, I'm not going to obviously allow myself to be abused or injured or anything like that, but I just want to also just really be give everybody as much space and room and not press people as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't cause problems. I usually just respect what the people want, unless I see a reason why. I mean, somebody tells me not to be violent, I'll say, you know what, unless they touch somebody, I'll leave it alone. And that's what happened on Saturday. They pushed some woman to the ground, and that's when I jumped off and broke my camera and had an incident. But
the cops?
No, the fascist, Jesus-loving Trump supporters or whatever they were.
Where was that?
It was in front of the federal building near Westwood over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was this little group going around acting a fool. But yeah, I they kept saying don't be violent because I was messing with them. I was trying to instigate. I wanted them to hit me so I could go off. And then the people, I guess, the quote unquote peacekeepers at the protest asked me to not do that anymore because they said it would be bad press for one of our people to be whooping some Trump supporters' ass for some reason. So I said, whatever y'all want, but I'm going to tell you like this. If they touch one of us, nobody's going to be able to stop me. And that I'm not going to let people beat on me or anybody else over there or hurt anybody. That's where I'm at. But I'll abide by their rules or whatever as long as I think it's beneficial for everybody. I'm not there to start shit. I'm there to end shit if it starts.
Yeah, and I'm just there to support. So somebody, it's humbling. In the beginning, like years ago, I would have reacted. But now I'm like, okay, you want to know? Here, I'll tell you what happened. It was in, I think, 2010. This is a good one, And I think I was still writing for the LA Weekly at the time. So I was like, I will write. I'm a genius. I'll tell everybody what the fuck's really going on. But nobody really cares because if they really cared, they would already know and they'd be watching somebody's live stream. But like in my mind at that time, I think I thought I was providing a great service or something. And I was just really, going to protest and getting paid. But anyways, not enough to go to a protest though. So what happened was I'm standing there. This was actually during the shooting Radicalized, now that I remember it. And I'm standing there and there's like a skirmish line, blah, blah, blah. And these cops are I think Beth was there, or Liz. Beth was there, and she got shot by projectiles. The cops are just going crazy for no reason. This is what the Mike Brown uprising, which is an 11-mile march, if I remember this correctly, that went from Lamert Park and ended up at the CNN building, like 11 miles later at night.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right, so in the middle of it, several different times, the police shot people with projectiles. Just kind of set up a skirmish and start shooting people. But this time, there was a bunch of people there, and people were yelling, and the cops were there, and this cop was pulling up his gun, and I started yelling at him. I was like, "Hey, fuck you! Put your fucking gun down! Hey, man, fuck!" And this black woman to my left said, "Hey, shut the fuck up! You're gonna leave here, and these cops are still gonna be here tonight, and so are we." And I was like, fuck, she's right. What am I thinking? I'm not thinking. I'm just like emotional. It's like, hey, just shoot the video. Don't worry about yelling at people. So I heard that, and it was one of millions of like little lessons that I picked up along the way about like how to be there if you've got a camera and you're white and you're just shooting. You know, it's a series of, yeah, it is, because I didn't know. How would I know? I didn't know, but I learned. And so
you live and learn.
To be like, ooh, man, there's so much to learn. But you and I both know a bunch about how to be at a protest and shoot it and get the most of it, and be of service and push it out there so everybody who wants to can.
Yeah, I don't know if I get the most of it. That's the best thing about the 360 camera. I don't have to frame shots anymore.
Oh man, I would love to see a riot with that. Like just standing between, where I would position myself with that? I would wait till like it's just about to pop. Like you can just tell, like when they remember the federal building on the 25th and they threw that pink smoke bomb.
Yeah.
Were you there for that? So
no.
They, whenever that, I would like stand right between the police and the people who are protesting and just stand there. And then would like to go back later and just look at like exactly what happened and what started it and who threw the water bottle that hit the cop, right? And made him shoot the projectile. That's fascinating to me to be able to look at something like that and analyze it. I'm gonna be going 360 soon.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, they got some. I love this camera. I was gonna get a newer one, and that came out more recently, but it's not for what I want to just get everything around me. I didn't want to do cool special effects and stuff, so I wasn't worried about all that extra stuff. And this camera actually costs a little more, but it's really solid. I like it. So yeah, I mean, you can do your own research, but I got the GoPro Max, and I'm loving it.
Can you imagine if these people were shooting like the Black Panthers in the 60s with a 360 and we had that footage to look at and we had that now?
Yeah, just to be able to see everything going on everywhere.
Exactly. And also to see multiple live streams happening in the same space.
Yeah, that's even amazing. When you have a page full of live streams, you can see them all going on.
Yeah, the Lawyers Guild is putting this footage together. I'm sure they're going to do some kind of like a compilation for the case for their class action against the LAPD, and definitely for that day. And so I'm very anxious to see that and look at that, because there was probably 5 people live streaming like in my immediate area, and who knows what else, and a couple people with big cameras. So that's going to be fascinating to me. A lot of times, Tim, I look at video. I write like a story and then I go back and look at video and then take another pass at the story, because it's live streams are so fascinating. There's so much happening all at once. And when you go back and look at it and dissect it and, pause it, and it's in terms of a journalistic tool and where the future's headed. This is, I want to just talk a little bit about that briefly. So I told you I started live streaming for this platform called Haps TV, and I did it because it's like kind of Hollywood news people starting a platform, but they got way ahead of the curve and they had a very specific intention for it. So it's like other platforms where you can be like, whoa, look what's happening in Beirut while I'm looking at what's happening in downtown LA and what's just about to jump off here in Minnesota. So and on this platform, where you can do is like, and I know there's other platforms that do this. I'm not really sure what they are, but this is just what I'm on right now. So there's lots of them people can find. And what it does is it goes to everything. You post, and with a 5-second delay, it goes on their site live, and the 5-second delay or 10-second delay, it goes to all of your social media. So I'm going to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, Instagram. And so I'm blasting it out to all of these channels at once. And so like you're picking up 5,000 like people watching whatever you're streaming. The downside of that is, like, if you're on Periscope, that seems to be like some Republican people. And if you're on, but the power of it is just like enormous. And that's the future, obviously, of journalism. That's where this is all going. And then the other, that kind of the video journalism. And the other thing is, like I said, I'm doing a piece right now and some other long form written pieces. So I'm interested to like keep my foot in both of these worlds, but they both inform the other. All right, I can hear you smoking that bong.
Oh, I'm muted so no one else could. Thanks for blowing my cover. now these people might
hear that.
These people are going to think I'm a stoner now. Believe that?
Well, I know you're on the medicine path, but I didn't know you were sharing that part on the show.
Oh no! The next show we're going to do at 4 p.m. We say who's your sponsor, and we just say which strains we're smoking that week. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's public knowledge. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I grew my first cannabis plant 2 years ago in Portland, Oregon. And it was an amazing experience. And it changed the way, it didn't change the way I'm relating to cannabis, because I have a relationship with this plant from the medicine path, from vegetalismo, which is shamanic practice. But yeah, cannabis in Oregon is a whole different world. So why? What's Best Buds?
What is, you mean in my name, or what's the best strain that I like, or what do you mean?
Yes, what is Best Buds? Is it a business?
No, we just me and a long time ago, me and some friends started doing some weird ass trippy political comedy on YouTube, like making fun of racists and stuff. And then what happened was, I was doing a lot of stuff, like I said, with Anonymous, and then Serena Shim got murdered, and nobody was talking about it. So I was like, somebody needs to talk about it. Maybe I could put something on YouTube about it. And then I interviewed her mom and her sister and a whole bunch of people about that. Her father. Sorry, that's the dab. And that's basically how this whole thing started with the People's Radio. It came out of that. It was just out of a necessity to try to do anything we could to get that story out there, because no one would cover it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the great thing about George Floyd is that everybody is covering it in whatever way. Fox News was covering it. Mr. Floyd, they kept saying.
So then it just kind of grew out of that. I don't know. My whole goal is just to try to ride and die with the people and help and protect the people any way I can. And at that time, I thought trying to get the story of Serena Shim out there was important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. It's kind of really the same thing for me. All I'm doing is just like, I have a little platform. Let me just open it up to whoever wants to see this. And whatever this is, it's just like what's going on right here in front of my face. And usually that's a protest or something happening on Skid Row. Because I want to keep really focused on housing and, what's playing out over these next few months with evictions, and really stay focused on that, because I think it's a big, big, big important part of everything that's going on right now. And I think it's going to be a little shocking for people when they see what shows up in the streets of Los Angeles in terms of unhoused people over the next couple months.
Yeah, with the big voice comes more responsibility, and I'm glad you're handling that and doing it for the people instead of what some of these other journalists are doing, quote unquote journalists that do it for the establishment or the police or whatever. Because that's, yeah, I mean, I've shut down whole press medias where they had to, press, what do they call those pressers with the police when they murder somebody, because they had to take the press and move them because I wouldn't shut the hell up. I don't like that. Them cats work for the pigs, and you work for the people, and that's really important. But yeah, I know we got to wrap this show up. But before we go, I'm going to ask you one more question. In your opinion, for all the people that will listen to this now or in the future, what would you say people should be doing to help with either police brutality, the caravans, or just, all in all, what should people be doing to make the world a better place?
Right. That is such the important question to be asking. And there's so much to be doing, First of all, just talking to people, educating yourself about what is going on from as many sources as you can so you're informed. Talk to people about it. Listen to people. Live stream. Write. Express yourself. Just because you can't go to the street doesn't mean you can't resist. You can resist online, and it is massively important to engage. So find a way to understand what's going on, and also read books. You want to know what's going on, how we got here, read Michelle Alexander's new book, or read her, the new Jim Crow. You want to know about the rise of the warrior cop, read Radley Belko, and read everybody, Noam Chomsky, whatever, if you want to learn about power systems. That's one of his simple little books. So, read Naomi Klein, even Disaster Capitalism, and find out what this government is doing, cannibalizing us. And so inform yourself, and then talk to people. And then the big part is confront, bigotry and racism and hate wherever it shows up. I do it in my life. I don't do it by shutting people down. I don't listen to hate being spewed at me, but I do it by engaging in a way and trying to communicate with them in a way, this is just me, that they can understand. And I think all of these things, live stream, write, blog, talk, communicate, listen, this is what the last piece of it, introspect. Start to really think about my own ideas and things, that my opinions that I hold so close and I'm so attached to. So self-exploration, examination, and then action in whatever way. Facebook, if that's what you can do, but do it.
Yeah, I fully agree. So yeah, Sam, thank you so much. People in the chat are saying thank you for doing the show and thanking me as well. I have to do this show. So, I think it was really informative, really awesome. And maybe one day you'll come back in the future and we could talk some more.
I can't wait. Let's do it again. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again.